The war in Ukraine, where Russia is becoming ineffective day by day, is now beginning to pass under the control of Zelensky's soldiers. The influence of the USA and European Union member countries is very important in this war, where the Ukrainian army takes the ropes. Especially the US government tried to be on the side of Ukraine as much as it could. Thanks to Washington's financial and moral support, the Kiev army was able to recapture many occupied Ukrainian cities from the Russians. In fact, Ukraine managed to put the Russians in a very difficult situation by carrying out striking operations over time. Zelensky's heroic army has struggled to gain naval supremacy, especially in the last few months. As the leader of Ukraine prepared his army at full speed to take back Crimea, the tension of the war began to increase at the same rate. The Russians entered a period of collapse with the sinking of their flagship Moscow, the most powerful cruiser in their navy. This event was followed by stunning drone attacks around Sevastopol by Ukraine, a first in the history of world wars. Thus, the Russians began to weaken further. Then the Moscow administration decided to move the Russian Black Sea Fleet to Novorossiysk. But Ukraine's submarine drones followed the Russian fleet and did not give these ships any rest in Novorossiysk. Desperate as a result of these events, the Russian Navy turned its route to its forces in the Mediterranean. Off the Mediterranean Sea were the Russian Federation, the Pacific Fleet's missile cruiser Varyag, and the large anti-submarine ship Admiral Tribut. These two powerful Russian ships, which have been stationed in this region for a long time, felt threatened by an unbelievable move by the USA recently. The United States has deployed an aircraft carrier strike group in the Mediterranean, led by the nuclear-powered USS George H.W. Bush. After this step by the USA, which stated that they were doing this directly against the Russian Federation, the Kremlin withdrew some of its ships from the region. The Russian Federation had to withdraw the killer of aircraft carriers and the flagship of the Pacific Fleet, the missile cruiser Varyag, from the Mediterranean after this threat by the USA. With this decision, the Russian Federation actually exposed Syria and reduced its presence in the Mediterranean to an ineffective level. It seems that with this move by the US government, the Russian Federation left the Mediterranean relatively long before the missile cruiser Varyag of the Pacific Fleet and the large anti-submarine ship Admiral Tribut. Recently, these two forces of the Russian Navy were seen in the Singapore Strait. This takes into account the fact that both ships have been in the Mediterranean since February the 2nd and were probably supposed to enter the Black Sea, but Turkey has closed the Bosphorus. It is noted that these ships provided protection to the Russian group in Syria and at the same time formed the core of the group of Russian ships of the Russian Federation Black Sea Fleet, which remained there after the invasion. The Russian ship group also included several submarines of the 11356R frigate Admiral Hirorovich project and Varshavinka class. Thus, the only Russian ship that was supposed to encounter the US carrier strike group, or rather was created for this mission, left the Mediterranean. It is worth recalling that the missile cruiser Varyag is part of the project 1164 Atlant and currently belongs to the group of cruisers Moskva, which was sunk. Also, Varyag is the third in the series, the last of the completed ships and one of the two remaining ships of this project in the Russian Federation. There may be several reasons why the cruiser Varyag left the Mediterranean with the move of the USA. The first reason is considered to be the need for the Russian Navy to enter service, which could not be realized at the Syrian base in Tartus. Another reason is that it was a valid decision to collapse the group in Syria. Yet another possible factor is the need to cover the Pacific region. The Russians suffered the prestige loss with the decision to withdraw the cruiser Varyag and the large anti-submarine ship Admiral Tribut from the Mediterranean. The Russian Navy, which could not maintain its existence in the Black Sea as before due to possible threats from Ukraine and had to constantly relocate its fleet, lost its former power. The British also made an assessment about the latest situation of the Russian Navy and the effect of the Ukrainian-Russian war on the seas. It was claimed that the Russian Navy ships that had been waiting in the Mediterranean for months had to return to Russia by following a route through the Pacific, as Turkey closed the straits to Russian warships after the Russia-Ukraine war began on February 24th. The British press, which reported the development, stated that Turkey's ban was a great blow to the president of the Russian giants, Vladimir Putin, who lost blood rapidly in the Black Sea during the Ukraine war. After the Russian invasion, Ukraine demanded that Russian warships be banned from the straits in accordance with the Montreux Convention. Minister of Foreign Affairs Mevlut Çavuşoğlu announced that it was concluded that the crisis between Russia and Ukraine was defined as a war and that the authority granted to Turkey by the Montreux Convention would be used. And then Turkey decided to close the straits to the passage of Russian ships. Ukraine-based Black Sea Strategic Research Institute, in a report published over the weekend, announced that 2 warships and a submarine belonging to the Russian Pacific Navy left the Mediterranean via the Suez Canal at the end of last month. It is stated that the 2 ships were sent to the Mediterranean just before the Ukrainian invasion and have been waiting there for months. The Russian Ministry of Defense also confirmed in an official statement that the Varyag and Admiral Tribut ships followed a long route through the South China Sea and reached the city of Vladivostok on the Russian Pacific coast. The British press commented that the inability of Russian warships in the Mediterranean to enter the Black Sea due to Turkey's ban was a major blow to Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Due to Turkey's ban, Russian ships in the Mediterranean, which were planned to be deployed to the Black Sea against Ukraine, had to return to the entire Pacific for resupply. Speaking to the news site, British Navy expert Ian Ballantyne stated that the prohibition of passage through the straits brought Russia's activities in the west of the Black Sea to a standstill and seriously weakened Russia while the Ukraine war was going on, noting that the recent UAV attacks carried out by Ukraine against Russian targets on the Black Sea coast weakened Russia's hand and that Russia's Black Sea fleet was badly injured. Ballantyne said, "Turkey's aim is to send warships to the Pacific, Baltics, or the Baltics instead of the Black Sea, forced him to send it to the North Pole." Ballantyne explained that a situation that puts Russia in a difficult situation also reveals the increasing influence of Turkey, especially in the Mediterranean. The British expert commented that Turkey is an important NATO power in the Black Sea. In line with all these events, the Russian Navy, which became weaker as stated, could not play a very active role in the Ukraine-Russia war. There has also been a great deal of tension between Russia and NATO in the Baltic Sea recently. After the Russians lost their dominance in the seas, this tension increased the concerns in the Moscow administration. Here are the details of the tension in question. Numerous warships, including 5 aircraft carriers belonging to NATO countries, held exercises in the Atlantic region and the Mediterranean. On the other hand, NATO reported that 2 Russian planes approached unsafely the NATO Permanent Naval Group 1 ships carrying out routine operations in the Baltic Sea. According to the statement by NATO, many warships and warplanes accompanied aircraft carriers of the USA, Britain, Italy, and France during the exercises held throughout November. The USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, considered the world's newest and largest warship, also participated in the exercises, in which thousands of soldiers took part. Other aircraft carriers were also USS George H.W. Bush, British HMS Queen Elizabeth, French Charles de Gaulle, and Italian Cavour. These aircraft carriers were reportedly accompanied by other warships from Canada, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, France, Greece, Italy, and the United States. In addition to combat submarines and air combat maneuvers, naval supply activities were carried out during the exercises. In addition, warplanes took off from an aircraft carrier and landed on other aircraft carriers. On the other hand, NATO reported that 2 Russian warplanes unsafely approached NATO Permanent Naval Group 1 ships, conducting routine operations in the Baltic Sea. It was stated that the Russian warplanes did not respond to the communication of the Allied forces in the incident, and that they passed within 75 meters of the ships at an altitude of about 100 meters. It was emphasized that the interaction of Russian aircraft with NATO forces is a behavior that can lead to miscalculations, mistakes, or accidents. After this incident, the tension between Russia and NATO still continues exponentially. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications in order to be informed about new videos. Thank you for watching us.